A 26-year-old woman is now buried in Kaduna, nearly 2 months after her death, but the controversy surrounding what happened to her has not gone away. Mary Habila died at the Ebonyi State residence of Minister of Works, Senator David Umahi, and her death has since generated conflicting accounts, calls for an independent forensic investigation, and a legal dispute over whether her remains should undergo an autopsy. Now, with Habila buried in Nok, Kaduna State, one major question remains: what exactly happened before Mary Habila died? And why has the dispute over an autopsy remained unresolved? According to a report by Sahara reporters, Habila was buried quietly on Friday, August 21, nearly 2 months after her death. Her burial came after her father, Tanko Habila Wisdom, filed an affidavit withdrawing from the legal proceedings and opposing the proposed autopsy. That development is significant because the question of an autopsy had become central to efforts to determine the circumstances surrounding Habila's death. Before examining the controversy, it is important to establish what is known. Habila died on June 27 at Umahi's residence in Uburu, or Hazara, local government area of Ebonyi State. Umahi confirmed that the young woman died at his residence, but denied any wrongdoing. The minister initially described Habila as a physiotherapist who had been seconded from the David Umahi Federal University of Health Sciences to work with the Federal Ministry of Works. That description itself later became a subject of controversy. Sahara reporters subsequently reported that Habila was a community health extension worker, or CHU, after the Nigerian Society of Physiotherapy reportedly said her name was not listed on its register of licensed physiotherapists. Then came questions about the circumstances surrounding her death. Photographs said to show blood around Habila's nose and mouth circulated publicly. Police and medical sources cited in reports also raised concerns about possible injuries. One source cited by Sahara reporters alleged that the disease had signs consistent with blunt force trauma after her death. Other reports alleged that she was bleeding from her nose and mouth when she was taken from Umahi's residence. These claims remain allegations and have not been independently established. Umahi has consistently denied wrongdoing. That is precisely why the question of a forensic examination became so important. An autopsy could potentially provide medical evidence about the cause and manner of her death. Was the death natural? Was it accidental? Was there an underlying medical condition? Or was there an injury that required further investigation? Without a publicly disclosed forensic report, those questions remained unresolved. The Ebonyi State Police Command initially insisted that a forensic autopsy was necessary before Habila's remains could be released. The position was reportedly supported by legal advice from the Ebonyi State Director of Public Prosecutions, J.U. Chukwu. The DPP reportedly stated that available evidence indicated that Habila had been found lifeless on the floor of her apartment, with blood around her nose and mouth. The legal advice suggested that a post-mortem examination could provide important evidence concerning the cause of her sudden and unexplained death, but the family initially opposed the examination. That disagreement delayed the burial. Later, the family reportedly agreed to an autopsy, but attached conditions. One of those conditions was that the investigations should be transferred from Ebonyi State to the Nigerian Police Force headquarters in Abuja. The police subsequently took over the investigation. Habila's remains were reportedly transferred to the National Hospital in Abuja, where a forensic examination was expected to take place. At that point, expectation grew that an independent examination could finally answer some of the questions surrounding her death. But the controversy did not end there. A separate legal battle emerged. The Southern Kaduna People's Union, known as SUKAPU, filed a 20 billion fundamental rights enforcement suit concerning Habila's death. The organization described the death as unexplained, controversial, and unnatural. It asked the Kaduna State High Court to order a fresh police investigation and an independent forensic autopsy. SUKAPU also proposed that independent pathologists from institutions including Ahmadu Bello University Teaching Hospital, the University College Hospital in Ibadan, and the National Hospital in Abuja should conduct the examination. The organization argued that an independent process was necessary to establish the truth. But the case became even more complicated after allegations of intimidation emerged. Sukapu President Samuel Tabara Kato alleged that Umahi contacted him after learning about the lawsuit and threatened legal action. Those allegations have also not been independently established. Umahi has rejected accusations of wrongdoing and has maintained that he supports an autopsy to determine the exact cause of Habila's death. The minister has also suggested that some people were attempting to use the incident for political purposes. At one point, Umahi said there had been calls for President Bola Tinubu to remove him from office because of Habila's death. According to Umahi, the president instead encouraged him to continue his work. He also said Habila was one of his best workers and maintained that he had no involvement in her death. But the controversy has continued because the central question has never been fully answered publicly. What caused Mary Habila's death? That question has remained at the center of the entire dispute. The proposed autopsy was expected to provide medical evidence, but despite the transfer of the remains to Abuja, no publicly disclosed forensic report had established the precise cause of her death before her burial. And now, Habila has been buried. Her father's withdrawal from the legal proceedings and opposition to the proposed autopsy changed the situation significantly. The family's position matters because an autopsy involving a deceased person's remains is a sensitive issue, particularly where relatives have expressed concerns about the process. At the same time, the public interest in the case has remained strong because of the location of the death and the prominent position of the minister involved. This creates two competing concerns. One is the family's right to make decisions regarding burial and the remains of their loved one. The other is the need for a credible investigation whenever circumstances surrounding a death remain disputed. The strongest way to resolve such a dispute is evidence, not speculation, not political accusations, not social media claims. Evidence. A properly documented forensic examination witness accounts, police findings, and any other relevant investigative material could help establish what happened. But without publicly disclosed findings, different versions of events are likely to continue circulating. And that is where the burial of Mary Habila becomes more than the end of a family tragedy. It marks another chapter in a case that has raised questions about forensic investigations, police procedures, political influence, and public confidence in the justice system. For Habila's family, the priority is understandably closure. For those demanding an investigation, the priority is accountability. And for the authorities, the challenge is to determine whether outstanding investigative or legal processes can still establish the facts surrounding her death. Senator Dave Umahi has denied wrongdoing and said he supports determining the cause of death through forensic examination. Habila's father subsequently withdrew his support for the legal proceedings and opposed the autopsy. Those positions are now part of the complicated story surrounding the case. But one fact remains clear. Mary Habila is now buried. The controversy surrounding her death is not. Until credible evidence is made public and the outstanding questions are answered, uncertainty will continue to surround what happened to the 26-year-old woman inside the minister's residence. And perhaps the most important question now is not who has made the strongest allegation. It is whether the available evidence can finally provide a clear answer about how Mary Habila died. For more news reports, stay with us on First Next News. I'm Chidera Isom. Thanks for watching.